as head of system development and the European network of transmission system operators, following his position as Secretary General of the Union for the coordination of transmission of electricity in Brussels from 2002 to 2009. He has an in-depth experience with the Brussels-based energy associations and stakeholders engagement across EU and non-EU countries. He also worked as consultant to EU-funded projects outside Europe and looks back on a 25-year of experience in the power industry with the Verbund Group in Vienna. Today's title of his presentation is First Learnings from a Multifold Stakeholders Position Review regarding the deployment of CSP in Europe. So, floor is yours, Marcel.
Thank you, Aka. Thank you, Professor. I will start with sharing my screen, so it should be now the case. Is my screen visible for everybody? Yes. So, yes. All right. So thanks. Good day to everybody. Thanks to Metu, I think, for inviting me to participate in this such an important event, and thanks to all participants for their interest in my talk. In those crazy times, I would nevertheless hope that nobody in your family is affected by this current pandemic, and I would definitely have preferred, and it was also so planned, to have this talk in a kind of face-to-face conference, but such is the situation. Now, my talk today, I would like to have some kind of preliminary comment. Is definitely for you guys, it's not a technical or technological journey into CSP. We will be talking about energy policy. We will have put this in a kind of European perspective. To that extent, what my talk is will definitely not be a revelation or a scoop or something that you never heard before. But most of us know what I'm going to say, but it's a kind of reminder to the outside world and to many guys that have strange talks about the importance of LCOEs and the costs and things like that, how technology deployment in a given country really happens. How can cooperation between countries can happen in the sense of have as a chance to happen? And finally, probably in the discussion, we can check a little bit and exchange ideas. I have no miracle, I have no absolute recommendation about that, but what we can do better for deployment of this technology. So in terms now of my program, I will briefly, all this, my talk is the result of the ongoing work in a given project. The name of this project funded by the European Commission is Horizon STE. I will tell you a little bit swiftly because I did already this earlier in Turkey. I described this project with a very also strong participation of Turkish Metu among the partners. The essential feature of this project is to base our investigation on a twofold country-based approach. It means we're looking not only at how the mirrors or our heliostats perform and or how the performance of receivers in CSP plants can be. No, we're looking first and we try to better understand what is the national energy policy environment, and then we put on that, we try to look into that from the two sides, R&D and industry perspective. And I will deliver in the second part and probably most important, let's say, updated part of my talk, where we are so far after having gone through a number of countries. So formally, this project functions, if you want, works as a kind of competence center for a very special group is called Working Group on CSP within the SET plan. I assume that everybody listening knows what the SET plan is, as a energy technology research initiative, if you want so, of the European Commission. Why is this project being funded? It is essentially funded to support, as the Commission to support European countries to look differently at various less deployed technologies through political, legislative, institutional prisms, if you want, from those perspectives. What should this project deliver? It should open doors, or not change the world, but it should open doors for the best strategies to procure CST. And now I'm using this acronym CST for Concentrated Solar Technologies, which is maybe more accurate when we are talking about the current situation. It means we are not talking about CSP, concentrated solar plants or power, not only for electricity, but as you will hear, the most of the future of CSP or CST technology lays in maybe other or in other applications of this technology in the various countries. And of course, what we want, since we have R&I as a research and innovation or development partners, one of the aspects is, of course, to achieve an increased public funding for research in this technology, especially research that is closer to market, which has a chance, let's say, to come to the market. And we're looking at a number, not all European countries, of course, as you see that on my screen, as we say, most relevant countries for our technology. Relevant, how did we define relevant? A country is relevant in the context of this project under two conditions. One, it has decent or even better solar resources, solar radiation, or it has technological or industrial capabilities that can be used along for a country, as simple as that. We, as Estella, and I also will not be long, Estella is a business or industry association representing the interests of the solar concentrated technology sector in Europe. We're looking today, of course, also at what's going on worldwide. And here you have among the other partners, METU. And if you want, Estella is driving the project from the industry side. And then we have 4 important research institutes that are giving us the infeed, the meat, if you want, so what is happening on the research side. Now, I'm sorry, let me dive in for a while, always from this energy policy perspective, into what we call the R&D perspective. How do we characterize, if you want, so how can we define the current issues of R&D? R&D, not only for CSP, any R&D, as you will probably know, first, it must exist. You must have R&D centers or entities that are looking at it. This is what we call recognized R&D capacity. Experts, you need to have experts in that. But those, especially publicly funded institutes, or mostly public, have a structural dependency on funding. They are permanently, those research centers are permanently looking for funding. And if you try to combine and to check potential cooperation issues between R&D centers, you will soon understand that all the research sectors in Europe are operating under different governance model, partly funded by budget, partly funded by direct contracts. So all these today results in a kind of there is as long as the market for CSP is not a reality, and the political interest for CSP is low, let's put it like that. There is two important things that that last, let's say, and are heavy, have a kind of heavy weight on in the context of research. There is a threat on funding and on further funding of those activities, and without funding, you are keen to lose what we call research excellency, the number of researchers, and the quality of the. If there is no funding, there is a risk there. And another risk is that without this funding and without improving the level of funding, there is on research a constant pressure to showcase the benefits. But if you have not the funding resources to bring up demonstrators or sufficiently convincing demonstrators and things like that, this pressure can be really come to a level that is impacting also the quality of research and the potential of research. I would, from an energy policy point of view, I think we have still in Europe and in wider Europe, when I'm saying Europe, I include now, of course, Turkey. We have definitely, not only in the 4 countries that are working with us in this project, we have definitely substantial capacities and substantial activities going on about CST, but the main point is, of course, as we will see, that together with the industry, the framework given to industry, that research and industry demonstrate the usefulness, let's say the potential for the national economy of deploying this industry. So let's look for a while now at the so-called industry perspective. The industry perspective and what companies can do to deploy a technology, any technology. We are talking about situation, I didn't say that at the beginning, but we are talking about situation where a technology is not yet established, when in a country where there is not yet a market, an existing market for it. Now, talking about CSP is not the same as how to deploy a CSP is not the same as to talk about further deploying PV in a given country. No, when a market, when the industry is less deployed, as the shy European Commission says, is less deployed, when we're talking about even more than CSP, about ocean energy, about some kind of biomass applications, we have this situation. The beginning of the deployment is not the cost, is not the performance, the technology performance, it's the national policy. You need a support by the competent authorities in the country. These entities must have identified, and we will come back to that, how they identify the usefulness, the benefits that will derive from a deployment of this industry. And this national energy, let's say, awareness, perspective, leads to some specific national regulatory framework. And together, the political intention and its translation into a regulatory framework, into auction types, and to any kind of methodology to support the deployment results in the first national home market. This is how you get a technology, any technology. This was good. This was like this even for the coal industry after the war. This is how it works. And the way, as I said, since the national energy policy, and I at this place, I would really underline the positive and the constructive cooperation of your political authority, of your ministry in Ankara, for talking to us. This national energy policy never looks at the performance of a given technology in one market. They look always from a broader perspective at the national energy system. So in other words, when we talk about how to develop or to build new CSP plans, if you go to the ministry and to talk about the benefits of CSP plans for the energy, for the electricity market in Turkey or in any country, well, the interest will remain rather low, especially when the need for that is not yet a burning need. So the point is that you have to bring with your technology a contribution to something that ideally is beneficiary to more than the power sector. And we will be also here, we will try to be a little bit specific. So besides the utility scale plans we used to talk about, besides building a 50 or 20 or 30 or 40, any kind of CSP plan, of course, with storage, we hear and we know that there is more interest in various countries and to look at what CSP plans, or CST, as I now prefer to say, what CST technology is able to deliver when combined with other cheaper, maybe, technology like PV and thermal storage. This can lead also, so this is one part, and this can lead also to envisage, to consider, and this is important, as much important also for the ministry, what the impact of deploying technology solutions based on CST can result in for small and medium-sized companies, also in terms of hybrid applications. All this together will or will not open, let's say, a door for seeing the first shapes of a market for CST. Now, how are we going with this project? What are we doing together with our partners? This is exactly what we did also in Turkey. We are trying to analyze, I love to say, to better understand the energy needs, the acting stakeholders, who has something to say or to do in a given country, in the context of manageable or of renewable transition. We try to better understand, well, what's not only what the situation is, but what the situation may evolve into in the close future. That would, of course, have an impact, let's say, and would give a perspective to research and industry for moving in a given direction. So practically, this means that we are contacting political actors, ministries, regulators, TSOs, and sometimes even banks, to get to really better understand how things are looking. For that, I mean, the practical project work, of course, is about preparing agenda documents, and we have also to deliver reports to the commission that is funding this. What do we want to achieve in this? Again, we're very much aware that I'm sorry, that we will not change the world, but we want to tell the world another story, a little bit, or to remind the world the story that it knows about how things work, how a given technology may emerge, or how it can be drawn because it doesn't serve enough national interest. So now what are the countries we have been looking at so far? Starting in the first start was really a very convincing start. We start with Turkey, and I will say some words specific about Turkey, but that I already said. Then we went to Portugal, Germany. We're starting now to look into Spain. Now, where Germany is far from being finished, because Germany is an important actor as a country in the European concept, but also has always been, even for the golden years of CSP in Europe, I mean the deployment in Spain, has been a very important, if not crucial, technology, let's say, deliverer for this technology, and they are again now very active in trying to also to use this technological field for serving, let's say, the country's interests. So this is, and we plan to go, as I said, France, Italy, Spain is of course an essential country we will look at. Talking about countries, let me at this moment maybe underline let's say two, or at least what we know already before going into the details of country. There is, in this wider Europe context, the wider European context, let's put it like this: there are three perspectives, three main national, let's say, positions or ways to look at CSP or CST in particular. You have let's start with the easier one. You have the Iberian, so Spain and Portugal, not only because they put CSP plants in the national energy climate plan. These countries have a lot of resources. They have a lot of land also to develop, and technology actors, and they have companies, especially in Spain, able to really construct a CSP plan. In terms of resources, Turkey is definitely also among the countries with very strong solar resources, and where, at least from these basic conditions, something may happen very similarly in the way how it could happen in Iberia. Then you have the central, not even north, but Central European perspective, where it's very clear that they will never build there and cannot build there any CSP plant for the power system. This is absolutely clear, but they are looking very carefully what can be done in Germany, in Benelux, in maybe in Switzerland. What can be done for decarbonization of the industry processes, with chunks of this concentrated solar technology essentially going in. This focuses on the use of this thermal storage for a high temperature, but I will come back for high temperature heat, but I will come back a little bit more into this at a later stage. So while the first lessons, and this is maybe the core part of my presentation for the next 10-15 minutes before we start talking, the summary of all this, and I insist, these are first lessons. The world is changing, not only due to Corona, but the way how countries are looking at things is a permanent moving, not target, but it's a moving object, a moving today, moving aspect. So what we said already for Turkey, that the way out Turkey, what could be done in Turkey, especially in the shorter term perspective, is really, instead of looking at how CSP plans as for the power system might be deployed in Turkey, the focus should be including for the research entities to demonstrate, and I am sure you're working on that. I am demonstrating and moving towards the industry heat application globally. What we identified is that the needs for, let's say, green, as I said, the political perspective starts with the commitment to decarbonize a country globally, a country's economy. So if the CSP plans are supposed to contribute to decarbonization of the power system, the ministries are looking at decarbonization of the energy system globally, and the need for decarbonizing, or for the Turkish system to use green as a CO2 free balancing energy to compensate, to balance the system due to the strong increase of intermittent generation in Turkey, is something that the Turkish TSO is talking about clearly, but it says it's not a burning urgency. This is something they can put numbers on that. They heard about 4,000 megawatts that might be needed around second half of the decade. But this is something that is today threatening to produce blackouts, which the TSO is essentially looking at as you. So the second aspect for Turkey is to improve, to increase the appetite of private investors in this technology. So this is where the chain and the chicken egg stuff starts. If there is a clear call by a clear framework provided, a clear message, or a line, a direction provided by the policy makers in Turkey, which I think they are starting to also consider, the point is to motivate, to convince the industry and private investors to put also money into such deployments. As again, starting maybe smaller and starting with the heat applications, but there is some kind of a better link between what the ministries give as a guidance, than what are investors ready to invest, and then how to can the best framework for investor look like to have them putting some risk capital, if you say, in a sustainable way in a given project. So an essential point is indeed to look at how technologies, especially cheap ones, and can be hybridized for matching local needs. It's not only, as I said, this is very important, it's not only about improving the performance of the electricity system. This is not today, this is for the second half, not only in Turkey. This is an issue that will pop up. The story, if you increase further the share of intermittent generators of PV and wind generation in a given system, you will face a moment where you have to look for also a green CO2-free balancing energy. Maybe we can talk a little bit later about that more in detail. In this context, also besides hybridizing and local and smaller need to start with, of course, the future, let's say, or midterm needs I was just talking about will be substantial. This will substantial, but there must be evaluated, and you will hear also, maybe we'll discuss a little bit about how other countries are looking at that in a wider macroeconomic context, in a wider range. It's not only to provide storage, whatever storage, but how the storage solution might be not the cheapest, but how this storage solution is able to deliver some kind of benefits to other sectors of your economy. What we know talking about storage is that TESS rather than CSP, as the thermal storage solution as they are used in large CSP power plant, is today competitive against battery during at night, and I should add in my line, longer duration. Battery today have a kind of future to solve storage needs for 1, 2, maybe up to 4 hours. But if the point, as it will be in the future, will be to get nighttime, also from sunset to dawn, backup for the loss, after the loss, when you lose PV, or especially for this kind of storage, we know that there is not nearly competitive solutions compared to the thermal storage, provided we are talking, of course, in sunny countries. So this is a short, my today's talk is not focusing so much in Turkey, but as you will see, these points are the ones we are finding in different, let's say, in different colors, maybe, or in different contexts. Basically, there is a high consistency around those messages we first learned in Turkey. So, and now let's go to a message of hope, and in the more general findings, what we are at now, the point we are at. You have to imagine, when you are a business in an industry association, you are especially in Brussels, you have to talk and to face in conferences the bright future of PV and wind that are giant industries. You have a hard time to get somebody listening to what is the CSP or CST industries, but not only the CSP, but ocean and maybe biomass, as I said, so less deployed. The geothermal are also less deployed. So important is to realize that no country we review so far has told us we will never use CST. CST we continue to look at CST, maybe not as you, Estella, we're looking at today, but we continue to look at CST. And starting with this one simple statement, you have an immediate consequence in that. If countries are continuing to look at CSP or CST, one of the first consequences is that they should and will probably continue to support research around this technology. Not necessarily about, again, as I said, the impact on the power system, but for some specific reason. Then the various benefits that the country expects from the deployment of this technology is not always the same. Other generic points we have we have reached today is that managerial renewable power is not yet a challenge for the TSOs, or for the electricity system, especially in Central Europe, and partly for Turkey too, because also of the decent interconnection you have to the European network. Today, in 2021, the TSOs don't tell you we are at risk of a blackout because we have not the possibility to balance our system, not even with green energy. TSOs are not making policy. They have to keep the system running and to keep it reliable, to avoid blackouts, and they are not obliged to use green or CO2-free technologies. Definitely not. But what they say and what they know is that this story of backing up the system, where you go beyond 30% of intermittent sources, is something that will come. So CSP has a kind of mid or long-term future, if you want, so for the electricity sector. It is the cost. I probably will come back to the cost story. The cost competitiveness is, of course, and will always remain an issue. What does this mean? It means nobody knows today how the battery will really make it in the future, what will be the performance, what will be the importance of hydro storage in a given system in other countries. So the cost competitiveness will, of course, remain an important aspect the countries will continue to look at. But I insist on that. The cost, the famous God LCOE, levelized cost of electricity, not only for us, but even IRENA or other associations say the costs are going down, but this is not what drives the development of a technology primarily. It is the impact on the economy at large. But we are the industry also in Estella. Our partners are well, let's say, have a firm conviction that it will be, especially for battery solution, for bulk, also for long duration battery solutions to come up for the needs of the power system, is something that it will take at the very least 1 decade to be industrially available. And then whenever the second finding, let's put it, is that there is this permanent concern of political leaders to look at the technology based on what you have in your country. Nobody looks at the deployment of technology in a given country from the European perspective. It's a matter of maybe a concern, but it is the reality. So the countries are looking and trying. I think this is also what happens in Turkey, are looking at what are the real natural resources and technological and research and capacities of a given country. What can we use? What do we have to start with? Do we have a lot of fantastic gas network? Okay, then the gas network is part of national assets. We will try to use, as long as it goes, the possibilities of the gas network to solve, for example, storage issue. Second point is that whatever we do in a country, this will always, and all countries, try to localize, to set up via the deployment of an energy, via the promotion of a technology. They at the same time try to implant the industrial capacities in the given country. Job creation is a permanent issue in the way how countries look. I'm sorry. And the third one is this kind of prioritization. So all the countries, no countries give you, say, CSP will be interesting in 2027 or 2024. They are, in terms of energy policy, which is a kind of paradox or a contradiction, but governments and authorities are moving very much on short-term, or they base their thinking on short-term deployment, simply because technology is moving as well. So the perspective on technologies is always moving. And for example, what I have here in my slides, effective needs, who knows what will be, not now, we know what's the impact, let's say, of this giant crisis around COVID is, but the needs, I mean, electricity consumption, there is, I don't know serious projection about the impact on power as on electricity consumption in a wider European context. What will be the effect on that as long as the economy does not recover? So, and all this, what I said, is in many, many countries is placed under the name is talked about the name. I have 4 minutes to go, and I'm close to the end. This is what the countries call then simply sector integration. And where I had a very, very tense discussions in some places about the concept of sector integration. In some, the beginning of the discussion, how policy and ministries talking about sector, it smelled to me much like putting electricity and gas industry together, rebuilding national champion and still swallowing billions of subsidies, hidden or not hidden subsidies. This is definitely, this would be a wrong way. If sector integration means at the same time effective use of your assets, of what the country has at its disposal, and progressively extend these assets into future-oriented new technologies, and all the technologies should find room for very specific uses, then sector integration is really something to be supported. And the last word I have for now is, of course, nearly all the countries from Portugal to Turkey, everyone has an eye on the famous hydrogen golden eggs and market. Why this hydrogen has a kind of fascination, and this is maybe the best summary of my talk, because the hydrogen deployment, if it's green, this is not always said clearly, but the new hydrogen deployment is seen as serving 3 sectors, major sectors of the economy, of course. And first of all, the decarbonization of some industry processes. It may lead to deployment of new fuels for the transport sector, and maybe later, and maybe to a minor aspect, this might also serve the storage needs of the power and the electricity sector. So this is what I had in my last slides. And this is also how, with these slides, I will close my speech, since I understand that we should have time for some questions and discussions. Akil, if you want to take over, this would be the end of my presentation. I think I kept up with the timing.
After this slide, we can stop, I guess.
Yeah. Well, this slide is really the utmost, I mean, the most condensed summary. The sector integration, it is essential that in all the countries, this is not a reintegration of gas and electricity into national champion, but open to all technologies. But the main point is that it is not about promotion and support, especially funding supports to single technologies, but the support, the regulatory framework should be open to hybrid solutions. All the countries are very much aware that there is no single technology that will solve all the problem, match all the objectives, but that there will be a matter about best blending of technologies. And as I said before, the 3 main targets, what also research should focus is probably already focusing on, is how can technologies be used and will be blended to achieve those 3 essential, not 1, but 3 essential objectives of energy policy in nearly all the countries. Decarbonization of industry process, transport. This is maybe the harder to take objective, and ultimately, but this will be probably the minor role to decarbonize the electricity system. Thanks. thanks you for listening to me, and I'm of course open to take some questions.
Yeah. Thanks for this nice presentation, Marcel. We have just one question from Derek Hoca. The question is, sorry, can you give more perspectives on battery versus TS price trends, and if when batteries may become competitive for e.g. 10-hour storage?
We had a lot of discussions among our industry members here now talking about not the project but Estella. We had you have among the industry, it's like it's a matter of religious matter almost. The projection and the ways how people and the various actors are looking at battery, depending probably also on their involvement in deployment of batteries, is very different. The basis, let's say, there is no discussion about that battery may have, let's say, may match the needs for short terms. We had discussion with giant companies that say, well, the technology is such, you will develop very, very soon, and soon batteries will be competitive between beyond 3 and 4 hours storage time for especially quick response time and things like that. But there is no, my current state of mind, or what I heard so far, is nobody has a firm, let's say, a firm, let's say, vision about the level of competitiveness. What will be the level of competitiveness between batteries against whatever? The fact is, this also depends on what you're looking. There is, for example, in Germany, France, and possibly in Spain, an extremely strong push on batteries technologies globally. But this is due to the lobbying of the automotive sector. Of course, batteries to be used in the power system will not be the same as the use in future EV vehicles, but the level of funding into batteries research, into deployment of new generation or new production facilities is completely different. Also there, based on what is the global economic expectations of the government, if you want so, what kind of industries this will serve. So believe me, Erkan, and I am also, with my white hair, I went through a lot of private, discussion on this. Of course, the numbers and costs, whatever cost numbers made at the end be, and technology performance is a trigger. Of course, this has, since the beginning of humanity, this was due to technological progress. But look, this will accompany, this will not drive massive deployment of a given technology. This is what I can say about battery, and I don't have to say, well, this will be you have people that see a cost depending on also on what Asia will do with the giant facilities. For example, this story about the cost, whatever cost, it's a primary derivative of the volume, the market volume, of what your industry is able to set up in terms of facility. This is kind of a basic in any kind of economy, and this has nothing with the excellency or the excellence with the performance. The cost of a technology at on the market has not or little to do with the specific of the technology. It may be very specific technology that becomes very cheap because it becomes just it is pushed as a massive, let's say, as a massive or a priority industry. But maybe this is what I can say about the basic consideration is across all the countries, batteries, distribution level, maybe in some islands, some specifics when the TSO will need a kind of a short, a quick response time for really short need. But if a country wants to have, as this is the case, could be the case in Spain, a solid solution for backing up PV, the dropout, this famous duck curve due to the dropout of PV at sunset, for this kind of 10 in the evening to 5 in the morning, if you want to back this a couple of gigawatts with for such a duration, there is, and if you do not have giant hydro capacities, then thermal storage comes first, for sure. The point is when.
Thank you. The cost of technology, in fact, is not just an economic problem. It has some political connections as well. If it is supported with some political initiatives, then it becomes cheaper, and the cost of technology will not be a major problem, I guess. And yeah, of course, lobbying is another issue, as you underlined.
I didn't catch you. You're talking about lobbying.
Yeah. It's not just the economic problem; it's a political problem. It's if it is supported with the policy initiatives, then the cost of technology can be decreased. We have experienced in various renewables in Turkey, for instance.
Mm. No, I agree. Look, we've been, and I take a part of the responsibility, not I as a person, but I think the CSP sector, following the deployment, its original deployment in Spain, and this was very substantial deployment, has too much or too long focused the lobbying, our promotion of this technology in a too narrow way, just looking for good reasons. In Spain, there were many good reasons to look at like this, but we looked only at the use of CSP plants for the power system, and you have the talk in Spain that makes sense to say, well, if today we would build CSP plants again in Spain or possibly in Turkey, what makes sense is not a 50 megawatt without storage. That is nonsense today. But this should be a larger plant from as 100 megawatt upwards, as it is built in the world in the active markets, and all with this large storage capacities. So this was too long. We were keeping this perspective too long, not seeing that the other governments, let's say, or other decision makers, the guys that will decide to launch auctions for this or for that, are not looking at that. But because the TSO says, well, we don't, the best we know, it's not nighttime energy we need most, but interseasonal storage, for example. This is transfer from wind, so sun to wind, etc. So yes, lobbying should be refocusing on maybe and this is done really from country to country different, on what the main focus of energy policy, not electricity, energy policy is about, and to try to hook also research to align the research programs on what can be done or what can be done better to match, to have a technology bringing let's say its contribution to match an objective, a political objective of the country. This is not in the taste of everybody, but this is how the story really what we see developing now. And another part of another aspect or consequence of what I'm saying is that this fence thinking, we have been also, not only we, but technology lobbying entities have been too long, especially in Brussels, looking at their technology, and nobody wants to go across to look across the technology. And this is something that, to say it politely, that I'm not very happy about, because what the political, I mean, what the talks in Brussels, in the commissions are, is completely different of what the industry would be able to do. Let's take NGA, Sener, the big developers, the big industry. They have no problem at all to mix, to propose, to present a project mixing PV and CSP or whatever, or the CSP and biomass. It just depends on the framework, on the conditions the government or the regulators offers to them to bring in a project with a decent chance to be looked at. I can tell you also, for example, a good example, without going too much into details, but Portugal. Portugal has, as recent, it was last August, has launched an auction for procuring more capacities for the power system, and where there was 3 gigawatt in the auction, 1 gigawatt for reserve for PV, 1 gigawatt reserve for wind to further increase the deployment of these cheaper technologies, and 1 gigawatt without open, where it was said the value of storage would be taken into account. No project of CSP has entered this auction, because the industry has said, well, if the story is about competing on a 1-2 hour storage capacity, and this is not for CSP, so nobody. So we hope now that will be new types of auctions in those countries where the fundamental assets of a given technology are taken into account. In other words, the auction framework should not be only based on LCOE, this LCOE, nobody, not even IRENA is taking this as a main driver for the IRENA or others, or World Bank and things like that. But it should be what makes sense in a given system, now broadly again, for the power system, but also for reaching more, further objective decarbonization, what makes sense in a given country. And then you can have auctions that are market-based, as a competitive auctions, but let's say we want to have in our system, in our economy, this part of thermal storage. Let's make an auction on what is the best way to provide such a project using various stuff. And this let's say tailor-made auction design is one of the most important points to accelerate or to develop anyway a new technology. And this is just at the beginning of this. This is very, very. We had last week talks with the German government. I mean, with the German Ministry for Economy, and the guys that are sitting, that are able to promote or in those cases even to fund some research activities were were just modestly aware that CSP is something can be also used for different things than for power plant like in Dubai. This is partly our fault, maybe, because the actors are too small that they are not heard and they cannot make big conferences or something like that. But well, and now you have in Germany, for example, some new procedures that are calling the industry to provide project types, also demonstrators sometimes for things that do not exist, or for solutions much around hydrogen story, around the hydrogen buzz, about how what could be supportive to the main objectives of the German government, which is maybe the first one is decarbonize the industry, and the transport in a second place. So this is what should happen.
Okay. Okay, we have another question from Yelda. What about different support policies, subsidies specific to CST technologies in different EU countries? Can you give specific examples for such supports in different countries, maybe other countries than EU?
No, there is the support schemes, or as we knew them in the beginning of the 2000, as of the so feed-in tariffs types and things like that, are dead in Europe. I dead. It's my current conviction. Only idiots do not change their opinion. Yeah? But I don't see this in any form coming. We are still calling for support schemes, especially those technologies, and I'm looking now beyond CSP. We know that technologies in Europe are much less self-deployed than CSP. CSP, or concentrated solar, let's say, in Europe has nevertheless, the 2.3, 2.5 gigawatt installed. You have technology, ocean, geothermal, that have much less than that, and these technology are much more than we do, calling for support schemes and direct subsidies and things like that. So I don't know about yes, maybe in South Africa, it comes to my mind that there were some also types of support, in the sense of support depending on the time of the day your energy is flowing in. There are various types of this, but my point is that to have a global generous support in the type of the feed-in tariff we knew in the past, this belongs to the past. I see more the future in placing the various technology in a fair, let's say, in fair competition. Let's put it like that. If we continue just to use to the famous levelized cost to compare pears and beers, so the things that are not the same product, well, this is what should not happen in the future, and will not. Hopefully will not happen based on at least the slow but steady change of mindset in the government, very modestly, due to our small contribution.
Okay, we have another question, is in fact connected with this one. According to latest version of IRENA report about outlook of CSP would cost about 7 cents per kilowatt hour, according to a contract in Saudi Arabia, but there is no discussion about the future. What do you think about the cost of CSP in future? Will it take over PV in terms of LCOE?
No, never. I mean, if we understand CSP, and only CSP with storage will be built in the future, whatever part of the world. If compare the power generation and the built-in storage, will never be competitive for just for this one reason, to a technology that just delivers that just generates. So this being said, my personal belief, I cannot back this by numbers, or because maybe I didn't read exactly or in detail the numbers provided by IRENA, but the truth is that I see where PV currently is around between 2 and 3 cents in terms of LCOE. is a kind of threshold. So the chances that the gap between cost of PV and CSP will be narrowed is yes, we will probably 7, why not 7? I heard one day the president of Aqua Power that was saying, well, let me build three giant plants at 150 megawatts, and you will see, he was talking some years ago, I will cut my cost, the LCOE by half. Yeah? This is how it, but nevertheless, from a pure industrial perspective, the Lego game of PV I mean, it will remain probably always below the cost of the CSP chain, let's say, from a pure industrial infrastructure point of view. The rest of the cost is given by volume, by market volume. If you can standardize the production of heliostat, if you can have a mass production of steel structure for the plants I'm talking now, the costs are going, and IRENA reports a substantial now cost. We had also as a kind of baseline for even for this project. I was at the very beginning mentioning that there is a working group of the set plan looking at the implementation of a plan. As the industry committed some years ago, it was 2017, to bring the LCOEs of CSP as well as electricity plants in Europe below 10 euro cents per kilowatt hour. This is a joke, because I mean, if you take this objective is achieved in Dubai, or so if you have the right size of plant and in the right country, so we will go down, just always. And then it's the story about value, assessment of the value of it. Is a kilowatt hour produced at any time, what is about its value, and we know also from the TSO world that the value of a generation unit generated depends very much on the time and the conditions of your network. So not the cost, but the value of a produced unit, energy unit, is of course also very much varying due to the current conditions. So, but yes, I have no problem with the 7. I would put it even aggressively more at 5. For I think the boom of the CSP in the report is foreseen. There is a fantastic number: 300 gigawatt till 2050. 50. It's a long time to go for a company. And if this, not this, but half of this, as the 150. Not 300 gigawatt hour would be constructed and would be reality in the world, then I think we are at 5 and not at 7, yeah? or even below. That the cost, but what is then at this moment in time the value, and I realize when talking that when look, we had the commitment to go below 10 euros, 10 cents, euro cents per kilowatt hour in our industry commitment in 2017, assuming that there would be 30 gigawatt developed worldwide. Imagine if you have 300 gigawatt, nobody can seriously see that, but it is probably less than half of this originally of 10. So yes, there is this unknown. I say it's a matter of belief, but nobody can seriously answer. The point is that there is a strong correlation. It's kind of basic from what I'm saying, not a scoop indeed. That the cost of any kind of technology is directly linked to the volume, to the volume of infrastructure, let's say, for this technology.
Thank you. Another question from Shehnaz. Do the stakeholders in industry consider taking steps towards lobbying for stricter regulatory action in favor of green energy? If not, is there such approaches in governments such as limiting the activities of the fossil fuel industry?
Yeah, the lobbying this is a special, I like very much this. And I'm not sure there are too many. It's not, I already publicly, and we had a paper on that lobbying should change at the national level, and even also sector-wide change. Again, what I'm talking about is about to seek for active alliances in lobbying. Given a sector, even if it's not yet established, should become visible and politically, and achieve some kind of political, in the noble sense of the term, not parties and things, but political relevance. It should. So in Turkey, for example, there is not, to my knowledge, maybe but when you have no platform in a given country binding, for example, the efforts of various, for example, research and industry, something somewhere showing to the political world that research and industry are working not against each other, but together, that there are strong links between them, and that they are very much aware of bringing their research and their projects towards what the government is calling for, provided this is the case. This is the first thing to change at national level. Furthermore, and I saw that in the TSO world, you say in my introduction, when you introduced me, that I spent a lot of times in the electricity companies, and especially I was very close to the TSO world in the last 15 years or even more. There should be a solar industry integration in Europe. If we want to compete with Asia or so, this can no longer be that the PV sector is trying to sell more than there must be the demonstration that solar is one field of activity, is one industry as important or as with as many job, if not more job creation potential than any other. This is what should happen in terms of lobbying. What the current situation is that if you look at Brussels and you have a solar power Europe and solar heating Europe and solar whatever, and this is we are all acting as would we be paid by the number of publications. Where nobody looking at what the other, nobody trying to bring the strength and the assets of each technology into one message, and a supportive message to what the Commission called. Even the Commission never has asked for for deploying renewable electricity for the power system. If you look at the papers, they are talking about the energy system. Energy system is more than electricity. And these 2 points, strengthening the industry, the solar industry, the actors of the solar industry have no problem in blending technology. If you take any of these big companies, Aqua Power, Bright Source, ENGIE, EDF, they can do anything you want. They have their fingers in all these technologies. But politically, we are talking about still like in the older days, how does PV compete against it? This is today, this is nonsense. And this is what should happen.
Thank you. I have a final question. I really like your approach as R&D and industrial perspective. But in generally, for the new technologies, like we have experienced a lot in Turkey, how we combine these R&D and industrial perspectives in the context of scientific and commercial capabilities. So, since it becomes a barrier for the adoption and diffusion of the technology in the long term.
I'm not sure I understand well your question. You see, how do you better bind the efforts of industry and research?
Yeah.
I think ERDAC, so far I understood it well, is one of the best initiatives I know, a little bit going into the right direction. It is just with the means you have at your disposal. You cannot have thousands of people attending a big conference, but to bring at the level of your company a kind of strong message that there are not there the researchers, you know, with the strange, the strange look, and over there the serious guy of the industry just looking at the bank. No, that all this makes sense to improve the message about coherence and consistency of what both sides are doing. I admit also, because of my job now in Estella, that we have a hard time, since the market structure, since the number of actors in the context of use of CSP for the power system. You have only 5 companies in the world that are able to build a big CSP power plant. Let's put it like this. These companies are so protective about their business interests that they are not talking to each other and develop a large part of the research that is happening in their walls. And there is, let's say, Chinese wall, a little bit too high walls between those areas of those activities, so that the perception it's very difficult for a government, for a ministry to perceive that all these guys are trying to work together for good reasons, because you have a lot of sun in Turkey and you have good engineers and you have good researchers, that all this is working together in the same decision. Last point I did not mention at the beginning of my talk, for example, it is I forget my dear friends, the French, the French perspective, and I'm a good old Frenchman. France is, for example, we will hear this, and is a country that has giant companies, and they are for sure have a lot of good records in all kind of technologies, but they are looking essentially at CSP for export business, for building this technology, this kind of plants, or use this technology outside France. Remember, Iberian perspective. Yes, they look at their uses inside. European, North and Central European perspective, first decarbonization of the industry. The French perspective, as usual, different. They are looking at how to make business in Morocco or in South Africa, and not even consider what can be done with the CST. They tell you straight, our future is wind, PV, battery or gas. Battery and gas. That's it.
Thank you for this inspiring presentation and discussion, Marcel. May I give the floor to Derek Hoca to close the session? And thanks for the attendance.
Thank you, Erkan.
Yes, I'd also like to thank Marcel for the very informative presentation, also to Erkan Hoca for moderating this. Next week, our seminar is Water, Energy, Food Nexus and Industrial and Urban Wastewater Recovery. The presenter is Dr. Isabelle Allaire, from the head of Solar Treatment of Water Unit at CMAT PSA. And so this is really interesting for me because we are trying to launch a joint research line with CMAT PSA on solar treatment of water. And so I will, in a few hours, email everyone the link to today's recording of the seminar, and also the link for the registration for next week. So thank you again for everyone for attending, and have a good week. Bye.